You are watching day 3 of After the Hearing, a streaming show we have here on WFA+. We are doing special coverage of this track meet stabbing trial. Carmelo Anthony is charged with murder in the death of Austin Metcalf. We are right here in front of the Collin County Courthouse. We have 2 people on the panel here talking through. We have a lot to talk about. Let's start with Todd Shapiro. You've been a defense attorney for what, 26 years?
Yes, sir.
You've been on the state side as well?
Stateside as well, yep. 3 years in the Dallas DA's office, yes.
And we have Rebecca Lopez, covered every major trial for the last 25, 26 years, senior crime and justice reporter. We are a little tired. We're a little weary. And can you explain why we look the way we look? We've been up since when?
Yeah, so it's like 3 o'clock this morning because I've never been to a trial that I've covered where there is just so much interest that literally before the crack of dawn, there were probably 100 people lined up to get inside to try to snag 27 seats that were available to the public. And so if you didn't get here early, you were left out. And we kind of knew what was going to happen. So we got here early. We were some of the first 2 in line. So, but it was quite a scene out here this morning.
Just to set the stage, there is a curfew because of the security that's around this building. That curfew lifts at 5:45, which is the reason everybody's trying to get here at 5:30 to get in front of the doors to get one of those 27 public seats. As you're hearing about all of the rigmarole we got to go through to get inside, what are you thinking?
Well, I agree with Rebecca. I've been doing this a long time. This is my home county. I'm here, if not every day of the week, at least multiple days of the week, doing different cases, different business. Been practicing in front of Judge Roach since the day he got on the bench. Know Toby and Bill both extremely well. So I feel very familiar with what they're going through, but I will tell you, I have never, ever seen something like this that we witnessed today. Having to get to a courthouse, park at 5:30 in the morning, get in line at 5:45, go in at 7, wait another hour and a half until they finally let you in. And the security is strict. Judge Roach pulls no punches. He plays no games. He wants to get this trial tried, get it to the jury, and get on with it. There's not going to be a Judge Ito 6-month worth of OJ case. That's not what happens in Texas.
And they literally had people guarding, like they had deputies there to make sure that no one tried to cut in line. It's the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Well, I will say this, and I said it earlier as well. You will not find a better police force protecting the community in this courthouse than the Collin County Sheriff's Department anywhere in the country. They are professional, they're kind, they're thorough, they're prepared. They do an excellent job, and you could feel their presence in the courthouse today.
Yeah. Rebecca, can you set the scene for us? Because there was a line outside the courthouse.
Right.
And then there's also another line in front of the courtroom. And tell us how many people were just on that second floor.
Yeah, on that second floor. Well, they said first 27 in line are the first 27 to get in. Stand here, do not move, because we're going to eventually come and bring you a pass. That pass will let you get in all day long. And then as we lined up to get in, they had the overflow people, and they lined them up across the hall, and I counted like 60, 70 people, and then more people kept coming and coming. And I was not sure why they were standing there, because they told them only 27 people are going to get in, but some people still waited
I don't
for
think
a long time.
I talked to some of them in line, and nobody really knew what was going on. They're like, we're not going to be able to get in. And they're like, no, you can stand out here in the hall and you can sit on the bench, and if there's ever an opening after a break, you can go in. Otherwise, tough luck.
And there were some people, like I had come out in the afternoon and I gave up my pass, and there's this lady, she's a court watcher, she was waiting, and she got in. So it paid off for her to stay, but a lot of other people just gave up and left.
We talked all day yesterday about the notion that there may not be African-American jurors in this trial. We wanted to wait until we actually saw the makeup of the jury, and I think we can safely say now there's nobody who at least self-identified on their bio form that they were African-American.
Correct.
But tell us about the makeup that you saw when you went in.
Well, I immediately wanted to take down, who the jury was, because we knew that there were probably not going to be any Black Americans on there, but we did see people from Asia, I believe, and there were women, a lot of women, and I felt like there are definitely people of color. I know that there was a Muslim woman on the jury, and again, when I talked about this yesterday, one of the questions that the defense asked was, how do you feel about the immigration policy? And I went back last night and made sure I double-checked what their answers were, and the majority of them definitely leaned towards the left a little bit, and that they were not in favor of how immigration and ICE is conducting business in America right now. I don't know what that says about the jury, but it was something that the defense wanted to take into account when they picked these jurors.
When we're looking at the breakdown, Todd, we have 11 women, 7 men. Just looking at that calculus, what are you thinking?
I don't put too much into the gender thing. I mean, I think that you get good and bad jurors that are both men and women. So I don't really characterize or generalize about one of them being better than the other. Again, I think they went through a very thorough process, and I want to make sure we understand that they didn't select the jurors. The jurors were not selected. The other people were kicked out.
Yeah.
So the 18 of them that are there were the first 18 eligible jurors after all the strikes were done. So juror number 1 could have been off, and the first juror could have been juror 27, or juror 35, and then it went all the way down to the back. So they didn't get to pick, hey, I like that guy a lot, I want him on my jury. It's, hey, I really don't like that guy, I'm getting rid of him.
And the judge can get rid of people
This
too.
is correct.
So we don't know how many strikes the judge used as well.
For sure.
So, Todd, we're hearing from the black community who say this isn't a jury of Carmelo Anthony's peers. What do you tell? What do you tell?
I mean, I can understand their sentiment, and that they think that a young African American male should have other African Americans helping to decide his fate in such a important case. But that's just not how our system works. They're not going to seat African Americans just because they're African American and the defendant is African American. So the process works. Jury selection in Texas works. It's the greatest judicial system in the history of the civilized world. Nowhere else do you get a chance to confront your accusers, plead not guilty, and demand a full jury trial just based on an accusation. So I believe in it, I trust in it, and I think they ended up getting 18 people that'll do just fine.
And the defense and prosecution, at least the prosecution immediately said this is not about race. That was in their opening statement. And I think that they are trying to quell some of that by saying this is not about race. This is about whether or not somebody used self-defense or whether they committed murder. And the jury's going to decide that. And we're going to present the evidence. And you're going to decide this case on the law and on the evidence, not on everything that you hear outside. And then the defense said, look, there's been a lot of noise around this trial, and that's basically because, when we every day some protesters show up and they have been screaming at each other, but there's just very few. Honestly, there's not a whole lot compared to other places that I've been where there have been protesters, but they are making a lot of noise outside, and the jury's being brought through all of that. So
we've been talking about the makeup of the jury. Let's talk about the makeup of the courtroom. Who's in the courtroom? We're seeing both Metcalf family as well as the Anthony family, right? They each get a number of spots inside that courtroom, along with the 9 media, along with the 27 in the public. It is not a large courtroom to begin with, right?
Correct. I mean, there's a limited number of seats. Judge Roach was adamant, from what I was told, that he wanted to keep it in his courtroom. We do have a larger ceremonial courtroom in there that would probably fit 2 to 3 times more people. There could have been an overflow situation where they closed circuit TV the thing in, but again, Judge Roach is going to run this the way he sees fit. No one's going to tell him how to run his courtroom or his trial. And in my experience with him, it's always very fair and very efficient.
Austin Metcalf's mom and dad are in there. Carmelo Anthony's mom and dad are in there. Why isn't Hunter Metcalf, Austin's twin brother,
he's going to be a witness in the case, 100%. And there's a rule in criminal cases, they make exceptions for a mother and a father of both the defendant and I'm assuming of a deceased, that they can stay in the courtroom and potentially still testify, like in the punishment phase if we get there. But I do believe Hunter will be a fact witness, they call, during their case in chief because of his close proximity to everything that happened. I was always under the belief that he had died in his brother's arms, but based on the testimony we heard today, it was the coaches that were trying to keep him alive. And I think that his brother, Hunter, was obviously in shock what he was looking at and seeing, and so they were doing all the work while he was standing by.
I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of times when we start trials, we don't know, well, there's a lot of unknown factors. We learned this in the Tanner Horner trial where we had a lot of surprises. The prosecution got up there and said, you're going to see a video, and this video is going to show you everything that happened, but you really couldn't see much on that video. You could kind of see because it was so far away, and even the enhanced video, you couldn't tell. There was no audio. You couldn't tell what they said to one another. Was he threatened? Was he not threatened? What everyone agreed on, including the prosecution's witness, was that the person that first used force or was aggressive would have been Austin Metcalf. But now, again, does stabbing him in the heart justify what Carmelo Anthony did or what happened or what the argument between the two of them?
Let's talk about the opening statements. I'm going to read some of the most compelling things I heard from there, and I want you guys to discuss it. So Bill Werski with the state said this is provoked, unjustified murder, and this killing is senseless. He's used those words, provoked, unjustified, multiple times in his opening statement.
Senseless. That was another word he used over and over. It's Bill, as I've said, Bill's a great trial lawyer, so he has established in his opening statement what the state's theme of the case is going to be, and those points will continue to be hammered home with testimony, and then he will wrap it all back together in closing argument. Remember, we talked about senseless. Remember, all those same keywords and phrases will be incorporated into his close.
And Rebecca, what are you wanting to hear in these opening statements from both sides?
Yeah, I usually just want them to lay out the case. What are we going to see? And sometimes it is a little frustrating because they promise the jury we're going to see this, this, and this, and then they don't deliver. So I really want to see, okay, what evidence are you going to bring forth? And I want you to outline your case and what are we going to see? They want to also humanize the victim. They want to humanize the defendant, and so you're going to see a lot of that in opening statements
and
as
well.
Been
using the word. He's been using the name Mello. As opposed to Carmelo.
Sure, because it makes him more human. And one of the things from openings that I found most compelling was not necessarily what was said, but what was not said. And when the defense did their open, I kept waiting for some line that dealt with why he had the knife at the track meet to start off with. That is, to me, the elephant in the room. And without Mike Howard coming forward and saying, here's how we're going to show you why he had the knife, it makes you wonder, do they even have, they have no explanation for it? They're just going to pretend it's not there. And I think, listen, I can't say it's a mistake because I don't know what they've got planned, but that jury's going to want to know why he had a knife at that track meet.
Did you hear much of a roadmap for the self-defense claim?
No, not really. I mean, I think most of his open was more about establishing who Carmelo was as a person, his athletics, his scholastic, his family, all those things. And so I didn't really hear, and really defense doesn't ever, I mean, it's the state's got all the ammunition.
Right.
They're going to say, here are our witnesses, here's what we're putting on, here's how we're going to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt. From a defense standpoint, we usually just say something along the lines of, hey, please don't make a judgment until this case is completely been presented to you. You'll have plenty of time to deliberate and think about it, but give us an opportunity to present our case before you make a judgment.
I will say that I thought Toby Shook did do a good job in cross-examination. And one of the things that we learned that I didn't know is I had always heard, well, he just went under the tent and wouldn't leave, but he actually saw a friend of his, which I believe they're going to call to testify. He saw his friend's like, hey, and I guess his friend's a friend of his girlfriend. So he went up there and they were chit-chatting and they're talking. And then Toby said, he asked, because the video that was enhanced by the prosecution, that you only followed what Austin Metcalf was doing. Where's the video of what was happening? Why didn't you enhance what's happening with Carmelo Anthony? So I thought that Toby did a really good job of that and raising the question, was he actually sitting under the tent? Did you go out there and measure? Did you not? I mean, that does kind of leave you a little bit
Toby's poking some holes there.
Yeah, and and again, I didn't realize that he had a friend that was sitting under the tent. I just thought he just went and sat under that tent.
I just still don't think
that.
Matter? I mean, those are small bullet point details. At the end of the day, even if Austin pushed him first and was ready to fight him, that doesn't give you the right to stab someone and kill them. It just doesn't. The law doesn't allow for that. And any reasonable, rational human being would say, okay, you can defend yourself, but it's got to be proportionate to the force that's being used against you. You can't bring a knife to a fist fight. As an old saying you learn very early on when you're a criminal attorney, you cannot bring a knife to a fist fight. They have to establish that he believed his life was in danger, and I haven't seen it yet.
Listen, this is going to be difficult for both families, and we each have different vantage points inside that courtroom. I have a good vantage point of the Metcalfs. I think you might be able to see the Anthony family better. There were a couple of parts in this trial that were deeply emotional. At least I saw from the Metcalf family. There's one part where Bill Werski's introducing some evidence, and it shows the pictures of the two brothers. Yeah. Introducing that evidence really rocked the Metcalf family. And then there's the 911 call. We hear that at the very end. You were there for that, Todd.
Yeah, it was extremely powerful. So the coach that testified was a coach from Liberty High School. He was there with his track athletes. Bill did a really good job of laying the foundation and groundwork of who this guy is. He was a Army hero, been in the service for 15, 16 years, turned into a drill sergeant, has served 3 tours, overseas.
Blown up 3 times.
That's right. And so he has seen terrible things in his lifetime. And the idea that he was right there when it when it all went down and he jumped into action and never hesitated. I mean, the guy's a hero, and he was heroic in trying to save Austin's life as well.
So we're hearing some sound from that 911 call, and it is one thing that I will remember about today is after that 911 call ended, it was just eerily silent.
I mean, in the background, hearing him screaming, "Stay with me, Austin! Stay with me! Stay with me! Keep fighting! Stay with me!" I mean, it's heartbreaking, devastating.
Those 911 calls are always so impactful and so emotional. I can't even imagine as a parent sitting there and listening to that.
No. Let's talk about Pat Lopez, because we don't have a camera in that courtroom. We cannot stream it. We are using something that we've been doing for a long time, and it's sort of a dead
old
art.
School.
Yeah, going old school on this, and we have a sketch artist. Pat Lopez has done work with us before, and is now back here for this trial.
Yeah.
We're going to be showing some of those sketches, and I want you guys to describe what it is we're exactly looking at here.
Yeah, and Pat's an OG, by the way. She did the Timothy McVeigh trial. She's done Branch Davidian and Kobe. She's done a lot of big trials. She's excellent at what she does.
What are we looking at here?
This is opening statement. Bill's, this is a tactic he taught me many years ago. He likes to get right up in the face of the defendant, use his big old 6'8" frame and kind of talk to him. I mean, he's such an imposing figure in the courtroom that it can be very effective when he decides to put on this is the man that's responsible for all this, and it was, and that was what was going on here.
People are going to be asking, why don't we see the jurors, Rebecca?
Right. That the judge instructed us not to show video, and in Texas, the jury they don't allow us to ever shoot the jury, get video of the jury, or show the jury. And in this case, it's imperative that the jury's names and faces don't get out. They're protecting these jurors because they might get threats. There's people that are very emotional. They do not want this jury in any way compromised. So you're not going to see the jury.
Let's look at this photo here. This is of Judge Roach. You know Judge Roach very well.
I'm not sure that looks anything like him, but it's close.
Yeah. Yeah. What could you tell me about his demeanor this entire
Very
day?
much the same demeanor that I am used to seeing from him on the bench. He is a very straightforward, no nonsense. Here's the way it's going to be. It's my way, and there's no discussion about it. And that's the way he's always been, and it's very predictable. I love practicing in his court. I love trying cases in his court because you know what you're going to get, and he lets you try your case. If you noticed, the lawyers go and go and go, and he's not interjecting and stopping them or anything. He's letting them try their case.
And he admonished the public. He's like, hey, because I guess he didn't say anything to us at the beginning, but then he's like, hey, you guys are talking, and I heard it, and if you do it again, I'm going to kick you out. He's very no nonsense. He wants a very quiet and professional, no distractions in his courtroom.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
One thing we heard, at least during jury selection, is several of those potential jurors were scared of him.
Yeah.
Like
They said that.
They thought
And
that Judge Roach would come after
Let me
him.
be honest with you, he thrives on that. I tell my clients, when we go in and do pleas in front of him, I said, listen, he's going to intentionally dress you down and scare the living daylights out of you if you violate your probation or you screw up again, so just be prepared for it. He always likes to ask, what did Mr. Shapiro tell you about me? And I'm like, tell him that you heard he's fair, but if you violate, you're up the river. So
Wow. Yeah.
We heard from this next photo that Pat Lopez drew for us. This is Robert Starr. This is one of the 4 coaches that we heard from today. Were you surprised that the coaches popped up so soon as witnesses up here?
I was not there for the coaches, but I suspect that you want to put on some of your strongest witnesses at the beginning and some of the more emotional ones, and then leave the most emotional one at the end, which I'm suspecting it's probably going to be Hunter, who will be the last person to testify, because you want to leave that impression with the jury before the defense takes over and starts putting in their jurors. So I'm not surprised that they brought some emotional testimony on day one.
Yep.
So where do we go from here?
The state's just going to have to continue to build their case. They're going to be extremely thorough. We haven't heard from any law enforcement yet. The law enforcement response, I'm assuming you're going to hear from the paramedics. I think they're trying to paint as accurate a picture as possible while still keeping in mind the sensitivity of everything that they're doing. some pictures that Bill wanted to introduce, that he was mindful of the family, and so he turned away from them and showed the jury the photos, kind of old. He said old school, because normally now they just put everything on the screen.
Right.
He's like, I'm being mindful of their sensitivity, which is wonderful. So I think you're going to get a little more of that. Some law enforcement, some paramedic. I believe the brother Hunter will testify as well. Other witnesses that were in the tent. Other memorial students that were in the tent, or maybe even I mean, you saw kids just running. So there's got to be at least a couple of them that were right next to this when it happened that should be able to testify as well.
What did you make of one of the coaches testifying that he put his arm around Carmelo Anthony, and he said that Carmelo was deeply moved, like he was visibly upset about what happened? But did you put any stock in that at all?
Yeah, I mean, because he walks onto the incident occurs. He runs or jogs, I think is the word that's been used, and then he walks onto the track where two coaches come up to him and sort of embrace him and ask him, "What did you do?" And his answer is he put his hands on me.
Right.
But he was also visibly shaken, from at least according to some of the coaches.
Well, I would think so. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a 17-year-old kid, never been in trouble a day in his life. I just still can't for the life of me figure out what the young man was thinking. There were so many different stops along the way that could have prevented this tragedy, and in my opinion, they all belong to Carmelo. I mean, he could have easily, let's just for a moment say, okay, he had the knife, the confrontation happened, and he wanted to get Austin away from him. Okay, pull a knife out and show him. Say, hey man, back off, I'm leaving. But even that would be okay.
And very clear that Austin Metcalf did not have a weapon, so that is also something that the defense is going to have to get, in front of the jury. Like,
somehow.
He did not have a weapon, but he brought. And they kept saying that he brought the knife. He brought the knife to the track meet. Like, why did he have it?
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about a murder charge here. Can we talk about lesser charges that could be introduced here, or would they?
Yeah, they could. Manslaughter definitely comes to mind. That they don't. I mean, I think it's hard to get to manslaughter. I mean, it's recklessness as opposed to intentionally and knowingly, which is murder. If that's not intentionally and knowingly causing the death of another individual, I don't really know what is. I don't know how you would get to manslaughter. I haven't heard anything that makes me believe that manslaughter is going to be a part of the charge. So I don't see that happening.
Do you think when he says something like I didn't mean to hurt him, where he says something like, I didn't think he was going to die, or they're going to try to bring in some of that evidence?
Maybe, but your actions speak a whole lot louder than any of your words.
Yeah. So if you can, Rebecca, tomorrow is going to be just as crazy as it was today. My guess is, I think we're both thinking that there are going to be even more people trying to get inside that courtroom.
Yeah, I think so too, because now they know you've got to get here really, really early. And like I said, there were so many people. Opening statements and closing arguments are typically the days where you're going to see the most people, because you know there's going to be a verdict coming down anytime soon, and opening statements, everybody wants to be there. I feel like there is still a lot of interest, but I kind of feel as the days go on,
it'll
you might
wane
not
a little
see
bit,
it.
and then it'll pick up at the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you ever struggled to ever get inside a courtroom?
Never in my life, ever.
You've never waited to get inside a courtroom?
Never.
Me either.
In any scenario. And we've had a lot of high-profile cases in this county, some of which I was the attorney on, and we never had a scene like this, ever.
And why do you think that is?
All the factors we've discussed. Obviously, the race issue has caused a big part of this. Now with the advent of social media and how wild it spreads, anybody with an opinion thinks that everybody in the world needs to know what they have to think. Yeah. And half of them don't know what the heck, not even half, 95% of them have no idea what they're even talking about.
Yeah, we could, like I said, we could talk about this for hours because there's just so much to talk about, but we only get 30 minutes for this show. I want to thank you, Todd. I want to thank you, Rebecca, again. We'll do this again tomorrow night with another legal expert. Jeremy Rosenthal will be here.
He's good, but not that good.
Is there anything that, I just like one final question, is there
absolutely.
anything that stuck out to you, just like really stuck out to you today that
the thing,
that
I'll
was
take
just
away
so
probably
powerful?
two things, mostly, and it was at the beginning and at the end. I believe I was really taken aback by the defense not somehow coming up with an explanation why the knife was at the track. To me, that's an extremely important factor in this case. Secondly, is the emotional testimony we heard, the 911 call, the coach. how Austin died, the different steps. That was gut-wrenching, especially to be just a few feet away from the family. That we're all parents, and I can't even put myself in their place or let my mind go there. It's just tragic.
Yeah. A lot more emotions. I'm sure we'll see.
And I
over
think
the
we're
next...
going to hear a lot more when we hear from those kids that were under that tent.
Oh yeah, how they've been traumatized for the rest of their life.
So after this episode of after the hearing, we've been putting together a whole bunch of content just to let people know how this all came about, this whole incident. We have a timeline. We have interviews with the families that they did with us more than a year ago. All of that will precede this show we just did. So we want to thank you for watching after the hearing. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.